Hey there, hi there, ho there. It's Drafe again, and today we are going to continue our crash course in entry-level IT support with a video about troubleshooting applications. Troubleshooting applications is sometimes very far from a simple task, but the concept of troubleshooting every application issue follows a very generic and straightforward path. Whether it be a word processing application or a new game to play, there are usually similar steps to take to figure out what the issue is and how to solve it. I'll preface this quickly by saying that Google is your friend. Do you have any idea how many applications are out there in the world for Windows alone? A lot. Probably millions. I mean, some of them are malicious, but there are so many applications out there that it would be impractical to know how to fix every problem with every application. Given, when you land a job with a company or IT department, you will eventually be expected to learn the ins and outs of the supported applications and how to troubleshoot them. But even an entry-level IT professional may find themselves in a new position without a mentor and have a user that needs assistance with their malfunctioning application. Alrighty, so we get a report that a user's application isn't working properly. First, we want to politely ask some clarifying questions. If we are unfamiliar with the application, we want to pick the user's brain about what type of software it is and/or what they use it for. This can be a broad answer, but you want to figure out if the application is simple, like a word processing program, or complicated, like CAD design software. They could also imply that this application communicates with headquarters or something off-site, which could indicate a networked application. There are so many different little bits of helpful information you can gain by just asking what the application does for the user. Next, ask them how the application's not working. Usually, I simply ask, what seems to be the issue? Is the application working at all? Is the application just running slower than usual? Or is it something more specific? Those are the three checkpoints for most applications. It's either not working at all, working slower than usual, or there is something specific inside the application that is malfunctioning. Simple enough, right? So, they say it's not working. First, ask the user to restart the computer. New application problems can be caused by a number of reasons, and one of those reasons are updates. But, in general, a system restart can fix random new issues with applications reliably. If that didn't work, let's be proactive and actually try to start the application ourselves. A customer service trick of mine is to not accept the answer when they say, "It's not working." They could simply not know, or they could be so frustrated with the issue that they cannot gather themselves enough to describe the problem to you in detail. You might just need to sit down at the helm to narrow down the issue. You could say, "Do you mind if I take a look?" and investigate the problem yourself. Moving on. Okay, we have a few definitions of "it's not working." It could be that the software isn't loading at all. Attempting to launch the application either causes it to crash immediately or nothing happens at all. It could be that there is an error message that pops up on the screen. And it could also mean that using the program causes errors, freezing, or crashes the program or computer entirely. With those broad issues laid out, if the software simply does not open, you may need to repair or reinstall the software. This is usually very simple in the grand scheme of things. You can go to Control Panel in Windows, go to Programs and Features, find the application and click Repair at the top if it's available. If this option is not available, you will need to locate the software installer to reinstall the application. Please note that there are some times when uninstalling or reinstalling an application to resolve an issue is a bad idea. In some cases, important company data is stored locally on computers, with finicky applications and finicky licensing tied to finicky networking requirements, and most of the time, these applications should come with some type of technical support that handles all of this, that you can call and, get help as needed. But if the issue is with Adobe Reader, by all means, reinstall or repair. If there's an error message that pops up on the screen, these are usually very helpful. Most error messages can be copied and pasted into Google Search to find several other people with the same problem. It's also a good idea to include the name of the application with the error message, as sometimes error messages can be very similar across applications. Most of these forums have several dozen people throwing out solutions, but you don't want to use the first solution you find. Dig through the entire forum, look through other forums, and find the most common fix for the issue, as that is likely the best, most efficient, and easiest fix for your problem. If the software freezes when you try to use it after launch, then it could mean a couple of things, but We gotta think a little bit more. If it freezes for all actions, then we should probably look into reinstalling or repairing the software. If it freezes for a specific action, we have to think a little bit more. Does the action do something big? In other words, does that specific action tell the software to process a lot of data? Are there possibly hundreds or thousands of records involved in this process? Does it tell the software to upload or download a file? It could be as simple as the software is actually working just fine, but that the computer is having trouble processing the data quickly, or that it is trying to commit actions over a network connection that may be bogged down. Sometimes, software developers do not implement proper visuals to indicate that the software is still working and it freezes up a little bit. You can pop up Task Manager and look for that application when it hangs to see if the numbers for CPU and memory are fluctuating, not just rising. This will help you see if the software is still working. Coincidentally, you can see if there are other applications in the background that are running and eating up resources that this application may need. So, we covered applications not working, but what if they're just slow? This will be quick. Restart the computer just to be safe. If that didn't work, ask the user when the application started performing below expectations. If it's new or existing slowness, you still typically follow the same steps. First off, does the computer meet the minimum hardware requirements for the application? You can find hardware requirements and recommendations for most applications on most developers' websites or application documentation. Again, you want to open up Task Manager and see if there are any background applications that are hogging system resources. Close any unneeded applications and attempt to use the software. If it's still slow, install any software or computer updates that may be available on the system. Windows 10 is notorious for installing updates in the background, and things just stop functioning without warning. Search for Check for Updates in your Windows search bar, open that, and install the latest updates available, and restart. Next, if it is network-based, it could be that everyone that uses this software experiences slowness because of old server systems. Or maybe your company is using a cloud application where everything is online. Sometimes, slowness can only be improved so much because the systems are not yours to maintain. However, if you can confirm that the software is not network-based, then you could recommend a hardware or computer upgrade to improve the speed of that application. Alright, so we've covered the application not working, and we've covered it being slow, but what if it's working, but you keep getting random errors that pop up while using it? What if the software crashes unexpectedly at different times during different actions? I'm going to show you a little tool that is going to be a lot of overwhelming. What is Event Viewer? Event Viewer is another amazing tool built into Windows that shows all events that are logged into the system. Not all applications subscribe their errors directly to Event Viewer, but Windows events are always logged. So you can always open this beautiful tool and use the time of the issue to hunt down an error on your computer. To open Event Viewer, use the Windows search bar and type in Event Viewer and select it from the search results. Now, there are a lot of things to absorb here, but as an entry-level IT professional, this is extra credit. And you don't need to know all of this. We're going to focus on the two areas under Windows Logs, Application, and System. Each entry has information such as alert level, date and time, source, event ID, and category. We'll start with the alert levels on the left side. There are 4 levels: information, warning, error, and critical. Let's start with the worst, work our way down to the ones you don't got to worry about. Critical alerts are big bad dudes. These alerts mostly point to hardware failure or power outages in the operating system, and you can use the date and time to figure out how often these alerts happen. Error alerts are less to worry about than critical alerts, but usually an error indicates a problem with an application or the system. Let me be clear that sometimes these errors will appear in Event Viewer, but then later can resolve themselves. Just remember, this is a track record of things happening on your computer. Warning alerts are usually just a heads up that something isn't functioning 100%, but warnings usually indicate that the software in mention is still working. I tend to ignore warnings unless they are relevant to what I'm working on, which may not be the best practice, FYI. Information alerts are just what they sound like: informative logs that state that things are happening and what is happening. Okay, so let's briefly dive into the two separate sections. The application section is where you would find practically every action that was taken by applications or software on the computer. If you're looking for an issue with a specific application, your first place to look is here. If the user indicates that the issue happened around 10:30 a.m., you'll need to look for any errors or warnings around that time. If you find anything, make sure the errors or warnings are relevant. Make sure not to hop down the rabbit hole of resolution for the wrong error. Another good trick is to attempt to replicate the error yourself by doing the actions that cause the problem and mark the time when it happens. Then, go into Event Viewer under Applications and Systems sections and look around for that exact time, give or take a minute. There's a strong chance that something got logged when the error happened, and if so, you fast-tracked yourself into a replicated error message that you can take to Google to find a solution. The System section usually explicitly only has information about the system, hardware, or operating system. If Windows is malfunctioning, you would want to take a look here. The same concept applies. You usually want to have a time to reference for the error so that you can narrow it down to the message relevant to your system issue. Take that error message and/or event ID, take it to Google, and hunt down a solution. Okie dokie, artichoke. That wraps up this crash course video on application troubleshooting, but that's obviously not everything. One thing I need to mention is that sometimes you can't fix an application issue. Sometimes your only fix is a workaround, or something that can make yours or the user's life easier while the problem is being resolved. More often than we'd like, some application errors can only be fixed by the developers themselves. This is where you need to think outside of the specific application and provide possible alternatives. This is definitely a case-by-case basis and sometimes not possible, but offering a solution that technically helps the user continue to work is better than having them unable to do anything. Size up that situation, figure out if there is a workaround or alternative, and provide answers as they come. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Okay, so let's go over what was covered. We started by saying that Google is your friend. You can't possibly know everything, but the combined knowledge on the internet can help troubleshoot and solve most problems. We covered a whole lot on troubleshooting an application if it's not working and what to do. We also briefly covered a few things that might cause slowness of an application, as well as what can be done about it. We dove into Event Viewer and chatted about the different alert types, such as information, warning, error, and critical, as well as the two most important sections of Event Viewer for an entry-level IT professional, the application and systems sections. As I've mentioned in my other videos, being an IT professional means being able to adapt to your specific environment. You may find yourself providing support in a company that has core software that has no available documentation on the internet. In that case, you would need to learn on the fly and from other coworkers. If you are the sole IT support technician, you would need to reach out to technical support for any of those types of software, usually through the developers or company themselves. You might find out that your company no longer has a support contract for that software, and you need to chase that rabbit too. Eventually, once you've been in a specific IT position for a while, you get more comfortable with the software you support, you will rely less on internet resources to troubleshoot problems, and finally, become the go-to IT guy that everybody loves. Oh, and as always, if you have something to say about the video, feel free to supplement the information or blatantly contradict me in the comments. Thanks!